Well, good morning, everybody. We're going to get started here on our new webinar. I myself here am Stuart Shaw. I am the account specialist here at Paladin Data Corporation. Some of you might have known me as one of the lead on-site trainers back in the day, but I onboard new accounts now. One of the things I've been doing for the business quite a lot, whether training stores that are just going live or setting up stores from the get-go, is helping them with cash drawer reconciliation. Something that I'm acutely familiar with here. So that's basically what we're going to go over today, is how to balance your cash drawer, how to make that easy, how Paladin makes that easy for, excuse me, how Paladin makes that easy for you, and all the tools at your disposal to make that happen here. This will be recorded. This will be available to you guys on the knowledge base. So if you can't watch the whole thing, this should take around 30-40 minutes. Kind of go over everything and different tips and tricks. Feel free to watch this later on, catch up, and touch base with what you weren't able to get the first go round. Other than that, please leave your questions till the end. There should be an option to add questions on the webinar here. So if you have any questions, feel free to plug those in as they come up. We'll address those at the end. All right, with that, we're going to get started here. All right, some of the things we're going to cover today, what you guys are going to learn, how Paladin's technology makes your end of day easier, all the different tools we have available to you guys. Main reports we're going to go over today are going to be today's register balance report, which is kind of 3 reports in one. And then we're going to talk about paid ins, paid outs, and cash drops, as well as that other report, today's comparative revenue report, which you guys should be running every day. You guys can also run this for a quarter or month. We'll talk about that later, as well as detailed instructions on how to perform these different actions, tips and tricks on balancing the cash drawer, and other things we have available to you with some of our partners. All right, how does Paladin make your guys' lives easier? Well, kind of in the old way of things, 3-piece invoices, manually keeping track of invoices. You'd have to physically add up every single invoice for the day to get your invoice totals, then figure out how much of that was cash versus check versus card, try and get your totals for the bank. It was just a nightmare. With Paladin point of sale or point of sale systems, specifically with ours, Paladin processes invoices in real time, allowing you guys to calculate daily totals automatically in the system on the back end. You don't have to do any of that manual labor at all. Paladin is going to go ahead and keep track of what invoices were what different transaction type, how much was cash, how much was check, how much was credit card, coupons, so on and so forth. Paladin is going to give you a report of the breakdown of all of that. It'll even give you a breakdown by department, which we'll get to. But Paladin also has some other tools available to you to help record and report on how your store is doing in real time. One of those is our Paladin Mobile Access, also known as Mobile One, but it is mobile.paladinpos.com. Every single store has been set up with this. This will allow you to go ahead and log in and see whether you're at a trade show or you're on vacation, how's your store doing in real time? How are they doing today? How are they doing month to date? How would we do last month? And there's also a comparison on that website too. All of you have that. If you do not have your login information, email support@paladinpos.com. Ask for your mobile access credentials. They'll go ahead and get you set up so we can make sure that you have that. Definitely something readily available to you. Doesn't cost anything. All right, end of day reports. The first report we're going to dive into here is going to be the register balance report, for today's register balance report. We're also going to talk about the comparative revenue report a little bit later. These 2 reports should be 2 of the things you guys do with end of day, whether your end of day is in the morning or in the evening. One of the things you guys should be doing every single night before you leave as well, just as a reminder, is making a backup of the Paladin database. Now, some of you might be like, hey, Stuart, we're doing DataWise with you guys. You guys are backing up our database every hour of the day. Totally fine. but that's based on an internet connection. We want to make sure that if your internet goes down, you have a most recent backup of your data with your customers and all of your inventory information at your disposal, in case, God forbid, something happens to your store. All of you should have been provided a backup flash drive kit, so you can go ahead and back up your database nightly. You might have 3 flash drives, I believe, in that backup kit, so you might have one for different managers, one for daily, one for weekly, one for monthly, however you guys want to split that up. But just a reminder, we do have a knowledge base article on how to back up the Paladin database. So if you're unsure how to do that, definitely go ahead and look that up and we can help you with that. All right, today's register balance report. I'm going to go ahead and walk you guys through some stuff with these Paladin slides, and then I'm going to actually walk you through the Paladin software. So we're going to do a little bit hands-on today as well. That'll be a little bit later on, but first we'll go through the slides here. To access today's register balance report inside of Paladin Point of Sale, we're going to dive up to the reports module, number 5 on that top bar. And then we're going to go ahead and choose in the report area on the left, sales analysis, and then daily balancing. In the report list, you're going to have several different options pull up here. You'll have today's register balance, yesterday's register balance, period register balance, and some other options. Typically, you're going to want to run, what did I do today so I can cash out my drawer? This is something we recommend doing nightly. Again, sometimes you might do that the following morning, but we recommend doing it nightly so you have hands-on count of that drawer before you leave for the day. So we would choose today's register balance report, and then we're going to choose F12 next. That's going to take you to the next page here where we can choose our different options for the report. Our default selections are going to be for the current day based on the date that we are running the report. Then it's going to go ahead and order by terminal. Now we have 2 different options here. You can order the breakdown of the drawer count either by the computer or terminal that was processed on, or you can go ahead and do a breakdown by employee. Typically, I recommend doing it by terminal, specifically because anyone can log into any Paladin terminal at any point in the day. But if you need a breakdown of sales by employee, that is available to you. You can do that here. By default, it will be terminal. The checkbox underneath that will say, do you want to create a report for each terminal? That would change to each employee as well if we chose employee. But if you want a breakdown of each individual computer or each individual drawer for the day, as well as the grand total, we're going to want to make sure that box is checked. If we did not check that box, you'd have the option to choose a specific terminal or a specific employee to run that report for. Now, by default, we're also including 2 other reports in this report, making it kind of a 3-in-1 report. Those other 2 reports are going to be our check deposit report as well as our credit card deposit report. We'll get to those here in just a little bit. If you are using ACH with WorldPay, you have the ability to also include your ACH deposit report with that. Not something we're going to discuss today, just something to be aware of. At the bottom, we're going to choose F12 Run Report, and that's going to generate our register balance report. Now, today's register balance report, if you look on the left-hand side of the screen here, is cut off a little bit. I just wanted to go over one specific thing. We're going to go over the entire report when we're jumping through Paladin here. But we've got some end-of-day best business practices that we kind of want to walk you through. One of the worst things in retail as an employee, if you're opening or closing, is not knowing what the heck you should have in cash in the drawer. So something we recommend is setting a standard starting petty cash amount for every drawer. Now, most stores are going to set that standard petty cash to be the exact same for each drawer. You might set that specifically to be, higher at your front counter and maybe less on the back counter. However you guys set that up. Typically, a smaller store is going to be about $100 to $150 per drawer, but your store might be higher based on volume. If you're processing thousands of dollars in cash every day, you're probably going to want to have a little bit more than 150 bucks in your drawer. But set a starting petty cash amount for each drawer so you know exactly how much you should have in that drawer for the following day. So at the end of the day, we're going to run today's register balance report. We're going to go ahead and print that off, and then we're going to go ahead and count our drawer. When we count our drawer, we're going to leave our starting petty cash amount in that drawer so it's ready for the next morning. Then we're going to go ahead and pull out the rest of the cash, including coins, and we're going to make sure that that is set aside for our deposit, and we're going to count that amount. Now, one thing I want to note is the petty cash you are leaving in the drawer. You just want to make sure that you're not short anything. You know, if I'm out of pennies, I'm going to go ahead and swap bills so I can grab pennies from the safe for that drawer. If I'm out tens, you know, I might grab a 20 and go grab some tens from the back. You want to make sure you're swapping out bills or coins at the end of the day so your starting drawer amount the next morning for the next employee who's opening is set and ready for the day. Then we're going to go ahead and count that deposit amount that we pulled out of the drawer. That's going to include bills and coins. That should match to the penny how much that drawer or terminal should have for the day based on today's register balance report. So if we're looking on today's register balance report, this one here we have on the screen was for terminal 17. That drawer should have $290.76 in the drawer. And we're going to write in the actual column how much we actually physically have. Then we can write in and see how much we actually have there. That's going to show you if you're over or short anything. Now, a lot of people might ask, well, what's a standard amount that's okay to be over or short? Well, in an ideal world, nothing. It should be exact. But you can set whatever deviance you're going to allow in your store with the store manager or owner there. You know, that might be smaller, might be larger. Definitely something we recommend being smaller or to the penny. Now, once you go ahead and fill out that today's register balance report, you can go ahead and take that and stash that wherever you guys need, whether that's, hey, we need to get this to the accountant, we need to file this away, wherever you want to put that physical copy with the actual account, you guys can decide where you want to put that for the store. Now, some people might ask, all right, well, we're going to use a starting petty cash amount. How do I record that amount? Well, you don't necessarily have to record that starting drawer amount as long as everyone in the store or anyone who's dealing with the cash is aware what that starting drawer amount is. But if you want to go ahead and record that inside of Paladin Point of Sale, you can do that with a paid in. A paid in, a paid out, or a cash drop can be accomplished in the invoice and quote module by clicking on F8 checkout while on a blank invoice, clicking F1 cash, and then typing in the dollar amount you want to add to the drawer. When you press enter, that paid out details window is going to open and ask you, okay, what are you doing with this specific dollar amount? And ask for a description. That description is required. You can just put in starting petty cash, and then you can click paid in. When you do that, that's going to add $150 to the cash drawer count for that terminal for the day, and automatically be included with all of the funds that you take for that day. If you want to go ahead and leave that, so it's included in the drawer count at the end, you wouldn't do anything else. If you wanted to remove that petty cash from the starting drawer amount, or excuse me, from the amount you took in for the day, then you're going to go ahead and need to do a paid out at the end of the day for the same dollar amount. Now, how do they know to use that same dollar amount? Well, when you do a paid in or paid out, it's going to physically print a receipt for that paid in or paid out with the dollar amount, which you can include in that drawer, whether you slip that under the drawer insert or put that near the top bills, however you guys decide to do that in the cash drawer. But this will allow you to record your starting drawer amount if needed. Now, you can also do a cash drop. Cash drop is typically going to be used if we're having a really good day, and if I got robbed right now, it's not going to go so well for me. So I'm going to safely deposit some of the cash that I have in my drawer to the safe to make sure that it's secure. So that's something you guys can do with a cash drop. Paid outs can also be used if you're paying for different services, whether you're buying the crew lunch or paying UPS for a delivery out of the drawer. There's some other things to know about cash drops or paid ins or paid outs, and the main thing to know here is that they are recorded on your end of day reports. Whether that's today's register balance report or the comparative revenue report, Paladin will record what you're doing with cash drops, paid ins, or paid outs. Now, jumping back to that, today's register balance report, we went ahead and included our check deposit report and our credit card deposit report with this report here. So that means we're going to get subsequent pages showing our check deposit list and our credit card deposit list. The check deposit list here is going to go ahead and list every single check that we received for the day, whether that check was processed at the front counter or in the back office. This check is going to record the invoice number, the check number, the name of the person on the check or the customer account, if it was from a specific customer account, and the amount of that check. Now we're going to split that into two columns for you here. So you'll notice on the left-hand side, we have line 1. Kind of in the middle of the screen, we have line 2, right next to that terminal number. So that's going to go ahead and show you, hey, this is our first check, this is our second check, third one's going to be under the first, fourth one's going to be under the second, so on and so forth. We're going to give you a breakdown of those checks per terminal with a subtotal per terminal, and then we're going to give you a grand total of those checks at the bottom. If you're closing out at the end of the day and you're pulling out all the checks for the drawers and you're like, yep, I've got my 2 checks from terminal 4 here, and I've got only 3 checks here for terminal 5, well, we know we have 1 check missing for terminal 5, and we'll be able to see which check we need to go hunt down using this report. Hey, you know, I'm missing check number 3769 for Daryl's Body Shop. I'm going to go ahead and look for that check. Other thing about that credit card deposit report here, diving onto our credit card deposit report, similarly to our check deposit report, is going to give you a breakdown by drawer. And it'll show you every single transaction with both of those 2 columns as seen before. So we'll see that first credit card sale for this terminal on the left-hand side, next one on the right, so on and so forth, moving down the page. You got that subtotal per terminal and that grand total at the bottom. So we'll give you the subtotals here per terminal, and then you've got that grand total at the bottom of the page. If you guys are using our integrated credit card processor, you'll be able to see the breakdown of card types as well as non-swiped cards. Non-swiped cards are going to be your non-present cards, whether that's a stored credit card on file or something that was manually entered at checkout or an over-the-phone payment. Main thing to know here is that grand total amount for your credit card deposit report should match to the penny exactly what your batch is from the credit card processor for that day. Now I say batch rather than deposit because you might not have same day deposit with the credit card processor. You might have that set up for same day, you might have that for next day or 2-day deposit. So you want to make sure you're checking the batch for that day, and that should match this total. So that's our credit card deposit report, similar to our check deposit report, just giving you a little bit of a breakdown, as well as that grand total you can check with the credit card processor. If you do not know how to log on to your credit card processor's portal to check those numbers, reach out to the credit card processor. They should be able to set that up with your account so you can do so and double check that reconciliation to make sure that those totals match. Next, we're going to dive into our today's comparative revenue report. This is going to be our next main report we're going to run for the day. Unlike our register balance report, this is going to give us our grand totals with a little bit more information. So if you're looking for tax information, this is the report you're going to run at the end of the day. To run this, we're going to go up to number 5, the reports module on that top gray bar. We're going to choose sales analysis in the report area and then revenue right under daily balancing. And then we're going to choose today's comparative revenue report from that report list. Again, you have multiple options here. If you need yesterday's numbers, you have yesterday's comparative revenue, or you can run a period comparative revenue for a specific date range if you need that for a quarter or a month or the year for your tax information. Then on the bottom, we're going to go ahead and choose F12 next. And that's going to pull up this next window where we can choose our reporting options. Now those default reporting options here are going to be for the current date because we chose today's comparative revenue report. That's going to go ahead and give you the option to break that down by specific terminals or only for a select terminal or employee. and it's going by default to include everything. It's going to, by default, include prior year comparative totals. You can actually compare this with how you did last year. Are we improving in sales? Are we not doing so hot? How are we doing here? And then the expense payment discount and the export to Excel are by default not checked. If you want those options, you can. Most people like this in a PDF, but if you want this in Excel so you can see numbers in different columns, you can. By default, taxes are going to be included in your totals for your gross and your net on the comparative revenue report. Well, why is that? Well, the main reason for that is you took that cash in from your customers when you went ahead and processed those invoices. You charged taxes. You collected those taxes. Those are included in your end of day numbers. However, if you want to exclude tax from the gross profit on this report, you can check that box to exclude tax from the comparative revenue report for your gross profit numbers. By default, we're also going to compare this to last year's business day. So you guys can go ahead and see how you did from the day last year. Additional settings. You have the option to break down this report by several different options. By default, this is going to break this down by department. So you can see your revenue and gross profit by department. So if you're a little bit low in a department that you know should be higher, it's a little red flag to you to maybe go check and see what's going on with the transactions in that department. Maybe you just had higher returns in that department than sales. But this will allow you to actually go ahead and check that. We're going to click F12 Run Report, and that will generate our comparative revenue report. When we generate that comparative revenue report, you're going to see your sorting options that you chose up top. And then we're going to break this down into revenue sources and cash sources. Well, what's the difference? Well, revenue sources is anything that made the business money that day, but cash sources are depositable funds. What can I physically take to the bank, or what is automatically deposited in my checking account? Those are going to be your cash sources. Automatic deposits being those credit card sales. So this will show you how much cash you took in for the day, any charge on accounts, credit card totals, check totals, any web store orders if you're doing that. And then it'll give you your gross with that plus sign. Adjacent to it with that minus sign is your returns for the day, which gets you your net right above gross, which is 100% of your sales with the breakdown above. Now, the percent of sales there in the third column over in revenue sources, as well as in cash sources, is the percent of times that money was exchanged. So if you have a $20 invoice that somebody paid $50 for, they gave you 50, you gave them, $30 back in change, that's going to count twice on that number of invoices there. And that's not a percent of sales, excuse me, number of invoices, fourth column over. That's going to record that twice. That was 2 times cash was exchanged. So if you want a true invoice count, that's going to be the customer count down below under your returns of 311 on this sheet here, showing you that you processed 311 invoices for the day, which was your total customer account or true customer account. Again, we're going to give you that breakdown with how you did last year here, so you can see how you're improving over time. Lower on the comparative revenue report, typically a little bit halfway down on that first page, possibly spilling onto that second page, you're going to have a breakdown of revenue by department based on our selections that we chose there. We chose breakdown by department. Here's that breakdown. This is going to show you for each department the number of unique items you sold in that department for the day, the sales cost of those items, the markup of all of those items, which is your gross profit on the bottom here, which gives us our revenue for the day, which we can then see our margin for that department, our gross profit margin. That's going to show us how we're doing. If we're seeing negatives or zeros, let's go ahead and see what's going on there. Let's take a look at those transactions. Maybe we had more returns in that department. Maybe somebody processed something incorrectly. We need to go correct. It's definitely something to be aware of, is looking at those margins here. And then you're going to have your totals at the bottom. I've kind of split this report short so I could fit this on this slide here. That's why you're seeing that squiggly line in the middle of the page. But at the bottom of your department list, you will have tax listed with the revenue you received for taxes. Now, if you did not want to include those and you excluded those from the report, it will exclude those and not show that line here. But that will show your totals at the bottom with your gross profit for the day and your gross profit margin for the entire store for the day. Underneath that, you're going to see your taxes for the day, and that'll split that out with the amount of taxable sales, the amount of tax applied to those sales, and the amount of exempt sales from those here. So if you need your total state tax or total tax breakdown for the day, that's going to be at the bottom of this report. Now, in this example, we just have one tax structure for the state. You might have that for state, county, city. You might have multiple cities or multiple states you're delivering product to. Any and all taxes collected for whatever tax types will be broken down on the bottom of this report for you at the end of the day. Now, just like today's register balance report, it's a good idea to go ahead and print this off if you need to give this to an accountant. You can also save this as a PDF and email it as well, like you can with any of our reports. So if you need to do it that way, you can. There's nothing you need to really physically write on this report. Maybe you have a negative margin you want to circle and store that for later, so you can go ahead and dive into that and see what's going on. Now, sometimes you might be counting cash and it's tedious, right? I don't want to sit here and have to count all my bills every single day. Well, most retail businesses do, but you do have some alternative options for counting. There are online cash calculators. You can just Google cash calculators where you can just type in your dollar, I've got 10 fives, how much money is that? And it'll actually calculate that for you. Now, most of us in the hardware business are pretty good at math. We do it every day, so you might just be comfortable doing that yourselves. But if you wanted to do that online with a cash calculator, you can. Some stores have also opted to create a Excel document with formulas to auto-calculate the dollar amount. So they can just type in, I've got 10 fives and how much cash is that? And it'll go ahead and populate for them. You can go ahead and also choose an option that we have with our partner, Watch Your Total Protection. Watch Your Total Protection is a camera security system that Paladin integrates with, but they also have options for counting cash. They have drawer inserts for coins that automatically fit our cash drawers that we sell. They also have scales, so you can just stack your bills on top of it and it'll automatically know how to differentiate between a $1 bill versus a 20, and it'll calculate how many you actually have based on just setting it on that scale. And they also have counterfeiting detection options. Now, as far as counterfeit bills go, everyone should have a pen that they can run across that bill. But counterfeits can sometimes fake those pens. Make sure you're double checking for watermarks. Hold it up to the light. Make sure you've got that watermark in the corner. If you don't know how to do that, definitely talk to your boss or your managers, and they should be able to walk you through how to do that. Pretty simple to do with any bills. All right, other than that, we are going to dive in real quick here to Paladin Point of Sale itself and walk through a little bit hands-on here. So inside of Paladin Point of Sale, if we jump over to the invoice and quote module here, we'll be able to do a paid in, paid out, or cash drop by coming down here to F8 checkout. We can go ahead and click on cash, and we can type in our starting drawer amount for our starting petty cash. Let's say that's 150 bucks. Now, you might have a setting in the File Setup Company tab saying, hey, anything above this certain dollar amount requires manager approval at checkout. That's where we're seeing this pop-up box here. Again, that's File Setup Company tab. If you need to adjust or change that for your store, you can do so. But for us here, we're just going to require our manager approval, so we're going to go ahead and type that in. For you, that would just be your 4-digit login password if you have manager abilities in your store. That's going to pull up this paid out details window here that we showed on that slide. We can go and type in our starting petty cash. And then we can go ahead and choose paid in to add that starting drawer amount for the day. Now, again, not all stores do this. This is something that you can do if you want to record this, but it's not required. When we go ahead and generate that, that's going to pull up our receipt or print a receipt for you guys automatically. For us here, that's going to look something like this. where it's going to say, hey, this was due to manager one, in this case, Paladin support, giving us approval for 150 bucks going over our amount. But this is for a paid in for cash for our starting petty cash of 150 bucks. You can go ahead and print that receipt and slide that into the drawer. So that way, whoever's opening the next day can go ahead and verify that count based on the slip you have here. Now, you can also do that at the end of the day for the next morning, or in the morning for the evening. Whenever you want to do your paid in, you can if you need to record that. Now, at the end of the day, if we wanted to remove that cash dollar amount from our cash totals for that drawer, we're going to have to do a paid out for that drawer. To do that, we're going to do the exact same steps. We're just coming down here to F8 checkout in the invoice and quote module. We're going to click on F1 cash. We're going to type in that exact same dollar amount that we had, in this case, 150 bucks. We're going to need that manager approval again. And that's going to pull up that paid outs details window where we can type in starting drawer amount or starting petty cash. And you might say removing starting petty cash. And then we're going to do a paid out to remove that amount from the drawer. And then again, if you need that slip, you can go ahead and print that receipt and stick that with the cash drawer to show, yep, we did our paid out at the end of the day as well. Our end of day reports. Up here in the reports module, we can dive through our lists and find our reports, but we can also store those as presets down below to help out at end of day. So all you got to do is click a button versus going ahead and diving through our lists here. To do that, you can choose whatever report you want. In this case, we're choosing today's register balance report. We can come down here to F11, create preset, and we can choose the next button available, and we can give it a name. This name, I'm just going to say daily register. And then we're going to go ahead and want to store that on a daily basis. We're going to go ahead and hit F12 next. You have the options to choose for your sorting options. Again, by default, current date, by terminal, breakdown of each terminal, including that check deposit and credit card deposit report. We're going to go ahead and save that preset report. So the next time I need to run that report, all I've got to do is come down here and click F3 or hit F3 on the keyboard. And that's going to automatically open that report for me. I don't have to dive through that list. So for today's register balance report here, we can see that we should have $339.75 in cash after our starting drawer amount. Now, I say after our starting drawer amount because we did a paid in and then we did our paid out, which we can see on this report here, meaning our starting drawer amount is $0 in the drawer now. We have removed that. So we know that this is less our starting petty cash. We can go ahead and print off this report and we can write in for this terminal, in this case, terminal 2, that we, however much cash we have, we're going to count that out. We'll write that on this report. And again, we can do that with check and our cash and check total. Cash and check total being our full physical deposit for the day. Credit cards being our automatic deposits for the day. Now you might have some coupons as well. If you're doing any sort of in-house coupons and recording those as a coupon payment type, those will show up here as well. Again, ACH with WorldPay, if you're doing that, will show on the side with the grand total of everything processed for this drawer. Again, we're going to give you that breakdown for every drawer, and then we're going to give you a breakdown of everything together, all summed up. We had it broken down by terminal. Here's a grand report for all terminals. So for all terminals for the day, what is my full physical deposit? What do I physically have with cash? You can go ahead and print this off and write those in here. Again, because we chose our check deposit report and credit card deposit report, we'll see those listed here. We can see we took 2 checks for the day, one for John Doe, one for Bill Schwartz. If we need to, we can go ahead and hunt down a check and we know which ones we're looking for using this report. And then we're going to have that credit card deposit report breakdown again by credit card type as well as by individual transactions. Now, again, I mentioned earlier that if you're using our integrated credit card options, you'll be able to break down this by card type. If not, it might just say exactly what we're seeing here on screen. If it's external, saying, hey, this was an external credit card processor. I don't know if this was MasterCard, Visa, or Discover. I just know that this was a credit card amount for this much. Something to be aware of there. If you are not using our integrated credit card options, give us a call. We can go over the options we have for you and get you maybe something integrated that's going to be better and more beneficial to you. Help out on that checkout time, save you time there. So that is today's registered balance report, again, including that check deposit and credit card deposit report. And then we also have our revenue report, today's comparative revenue. Again, we can store this as another preset if we wanted to, so we don't have to dive through these lists. We can go ahead and just click on the report we want, click create preset, choose that next button available, give it a name. We'll give this daily revenue. We're going to go ahead and store this on a daily basis. We're going to go ahead and F12 next. Again, default options are here. If you wanted to choose anything else, you can. If you wanted to choose a different breakdown, you can break down by location or primary supplier. Most stores are going to do that breakdown by department though. And then we're going to go ahead and actually it looks like our default is by the day, not by business day. If you wanted to change that, you most certainly could. Then we're going to go ahead and hit F12 save preset. And then I'll go ahead and save our report down below here. So instead of diving through our list to run that, I can just click this button. That'll generate my comparative revenue report for the day, and I've got my grand totals. Again, breakdown by payment type, my gross minus my returns. In this case, no returns for the day here. It gets me my net. And then our breakdown of revenue by department with our grand totals down below and our grand totals of taxes here. If you guys have any questions on any of these reports, how to read anything, please give us a call. We're here to help you guys out. If you need help creating presets reports, we can help you with that too. Fairly straightforward, but give us a call if you're struggling with it. You can always recall a report that was stored and then ran. If you're having issues with your drawer counts or, hey, I'm off, $5, $10 every single day, I'm not sure how or why, we have some other reports to help you too. If you dive into the reports module here and we go to sales analysis, what I need to know, we have a salesperson exception report. This one's super handy. This will go ahead and show you every price override for the day, all dump SKUs or non-inventory items sold for the day, any manual discounts given at the register, any returns or negative quantities sold, and any accounting overrides. Accounting overrides being this customer only has a $2,000 credit limit, but somebody with a manager override allowed them to charge more than that. So if you want to see what employees doing, what different types of things at checkout, this is a really good report to try and track those down. If you guys need to run a transaction report to hunt down any sort of change in department revenue, right? We were saying, hey, if you have negative margins or something lower margin than we're used to seeing, maybe we want to look at transactions for that department. You can do that with this transaction report here. All right, we've got a question here from Linda. If I want to cash a checkout at the till, is there a way to enter it into the system so it shows the transaction? Right now, when we do that, just have a trade check for cash, but it throws off my register report. Great question, Linda. Yeah, great question. Real good way to do that is actually a paid out. You can actually, if somebody comes with a check and says, hey, I need to swap this for cash, is that something you can do for me? We can go ahead and do a paid out to remove the cash from the drawer, and then we can actually do a paid in for a check on a dump SKU. You might create a dump SKU called, cashing out check, or just check in the description of cashing out check. But you can go ahead and do that to remove cash from the drawer and add check to the end of the day totals. So to do that, we can just go to invoice and quote. We can come down here to F8 checkout. We can again click F1 cash. Let's say the check is for 50 bucks. We can say, okay, we've got $50 here and we are cashing, let's see if I can type today, cashing out check number, whatever that check might be. You can record that here in the description, and then we can do a paid out to remove that cash from the drawer and take their check. Now to add the check to the drawer, we're going to have to process that as a check sale for that $50 amount. Now to do that, again, you can create a dump SKU to the system. So if we jump over here to inventory, we can add a new item. We can name that check. We can say cashing out check. We can give that a $0 cost, retail, 0 stock on hand. I would recommend putting in a separate department for this. So if you have a specific department for checks, you can do so. I'm just going to put this in consignment for now. We can move it later. F12 add. You're going to want to jump over to the general tab. Make sure that is a non-stocked inventory item so we don't prompt you to order this product. And then if you wanted to add a auto text note, enter check number here. That way it is reminding the cashier to put in their check number. You can, and then we can hit F12 save. Now this is going to come up and say, hey, are you sure you want to record a profit of $0 for this item? In this case, we do. We're not making any money here. We're just exchanging it. You might do that differently with a reference margin for a different dump SKU, but in this case, I would say $0 profit. We're going to jump back here to invoice and quote. We're going to go ahead and put in our check SKU. That's going to automatically prompt us for that check number, which again, we can populate here and then press enter. We can type in that dollar amount of $50. Now, one thing to be aware of, if you have tax in your state, it's going to automatically be applying a tax to that total. We don't want tax. We want this to be exact. So in that specific instance, we're going to untax this item to make that dollar amount the exact amount that we gave the cash for. And then we're going to go ahead and check that out via check. And then we can go ahead and put in our check number here. Now, because of this tax exemption, it might prompt you for additional customer information. You'll need a name of that customer here, which we can put in. And obviously, you have that from the check there. And then you can put in that check number. Auto text note you might not need. Again, it's going to prompt you for the check number already for that check sale. But if you want to make sure it's on the physical invoice at the invoice and quote screen, you can do that auto check note, but it's not going to be required. And then again, we can put that in here, and then we can go ahead and check that out. So that's a way, if somebody needs to cash out a check at your drawer, how you can go ahead and record that at end of day.
Hey, Stuart.
Yeah.
There is another way I think you can do checks. If you just go into checkout and you select checkout and then select check and write $100, for example, for check and process it, put in the check number and the name. And then what happens, you can check and look at the revenue report. And what happens on the revenue report is it puts it as return just changed $100, which takes it from the drawer. It actually shows the check of total check of $100, but the total under cash and check is back to 0. So it basically cancels itself out. So this is a way to circumvent having to jump through all those hoops, and you can just do it right there. So you can see the $100 taken out. And then the even though the $100 is, it's excluded from.
I'll record that here. That should also show up on our check deposit list here as well for $100, and it does. Yep, perfect. So if you don't want to create a dump SKU to cash out a check, you don't have to. You can actually just like you do a paid in or paid out with on a blank invoice going to checkout and choosing cash, you can do the same thing, but just go ahead and choose check, and you can do that here. So that's an option to just process that check a little bit easier. So that way you're just doing a paid out for the cash, and then you're going to go ahead and do the check here as an option. So that'll take care of that for you. Awesome.
Yeah, there's definitely multiple ways to skin a cat here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Charles. Appreciate it, buddy. All right. Anyone else have any other questions? We're getting near the end of our presentation here. Give you guys a couple seconds to type any questions if you got any. Also, something to be aware of, we've got knowledge-based articles on a lot of the topics we've talked about today: how to run those end-of-day reports, how to create a register balance report, that credit card or check deposit report, how to do a cash drop, paid in or paid out. So we have write-ups on how to do a lot of the things I walked you through here today. But if you are unsure of how to do any of those, you can look them up if you want to try that first, or you can go ahead and chat us, email support, give us a call. Got a lot of ways to reach us there if you guys need help with any of this. Again, this webinar is recorded, so if you guys need to watch this again, you certainly can. Our next webinar here is going to be the devil in the dump skew, which Charles will be doing here next, or actually end of this month on the 31st at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Basically how to set up dump skews, how to report on those, how to keep track of them, what are dump skews used for, and all of that Charles will be discussing there. If you guys, again, need any help on anything discussed today, give us a holler. We're here to help you guys out. Other than that, I appreciate you guys attending. Thanks for taking the time today, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you.